Guess who's back, 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 Becky's back. What is going on, Coronation Street fans, and welcome back to American Cory Watcher, the channel where you watch me watch new episodes of Coronation Street and give the kind of opinions absolutely nobody asks for. And if you enjoyed today's content, make sure you hit that subscribe button and that like button on your way out, because that keeps me from screaming at my TV and traumatizing my cat. The writers for today's episode are Owen Lloyd Fox and Joe Parkinson, and the director for today's episode is Jordan Hogg. For those of you who care about stuff like that, alright, let's talk some Frankenstein shiz, shall we? Becky's alive! Becky is alive! We have a lot of thoughts and feelings on this. Alright. Let's talk some Cory. So we kick things off outside of number 8, where New Lily is complaining to David that, hey, I have a stomach bug, I don't want to go to school. And he does his best Gail Platt impression a la Norris, and says, well, tough cookies, you're going to school anyways. And she keeps complaining about her stomach, oh, I don't feel good. And now part of me is thinking that perhaps she's of the age where she's becoming a little woman, hence the reason for the stomach or lower abdomen pains. But, you know, that's just my thing. Across the street, we have Tyrone and Hope also having their own little conversation. Hope complaining about the sneakers that she has to wear to school and how they're, ugly and they don't feel good on her feet. And Tyrone's like, tough cookies, kid. You gotta wear the shoes that you're gonna wear. I'll go out and buy you some shoes, but I ain't spending $100 on them. Ain't no way I'm doing that, which is crazy because sneakers, even if you want a decent pair, like not even designer or name brand, like Nike and Adidas, you're dropping at least like 80 to $100 anyways, US dollars. So I don't know what the sneaker market's looking over there across the pond, but sneakers are expensive. Even with my HelloFresh $55 off coupon, I had to pay $120 for my new pair of sneakers to go to the gym. So I blame the tariffs. But anyways, then we get Carla emerging from her vehicle with a balloon, numbered balloon for Betsy's birthday celebration. As Ruby and New Lily are sprinting to the bus stop, again, because I guess in Coronation Street, half the kids on the street are going to school today and the other half are just not. I don't know how school schedules work over there. Maybe half the street already graduated. I don't know. So Carla's coming out to help decorate for Betsy's birthday bash. She's turning the big 1-8. David makes a crack about Carla being 81 because of how the balloons are flipped around, and he of course thinks he's the funniest person in the world because he is the funniest person in the world. But Lisa is not at all amused at this, and I just love how unamused she is by David at all. Like, she just lacks expression to anything that he says. And it's just amazing because you could tell Carla's getting ticked off more and more by the day. The bin wars continue to ensue, which we'll see play out a little bit later on. But she hands Lisa the 18 balloons, and the one has a hole in it. So Lisa says, oh, it's got a hole in one. And David's like, haha, hole in one. Don't be throwing that, though, in my recycling. And I think now watching it back a couple of times, I feel like in a way, this is kind of a little bit of foreshadowing for what's to come. There's a hole in the one. I think that's a subtle little foreshadowing there for what's to come in a little bit. And Carla, of course, remarks, why did we even move next to David Platt? And all I keep thinking is, girl, one, you knew how much trouble David Platt was last year when you tried to buy number 8 from Yale. What a pain in the butt he was then. Did you not think that being his next door neighbor was going to be the same deal? I also think David just likes winding them up. I think he just finds joy out of constantly messing with them. I don't actually think he's that ticked off about the recycling. I think he just likes being a cranky old man who's 30. He acts like an 80-year-old man in a 30-something-year-old's body, and it's amazing. And I love it. And I hope to see soon Sally and Tim also interacting, like all the neighbors, next door with the Connor Swains in the middle. That'll be really fun to see now that we have a new member of the Swain family who has graced us with her presence. So then we get a hungover Betsy who is slinking into Roy's rolls for what y'all called a bacon buddy. I don't know. I can't really pick it up too much, but if I'm not mistaken, is it a bacon, egg, and cheese, or is it a BLT? Bacon, lettuce, tomato, or is it just bacon on bread? I would love to know if you're from there, and you guys help me out in the comment section below, because I have no idea what it is. But or is it like a bacon wrap, like quiche or something? Because for me, it's like a bacon, egg, and cheese, but maybe that's too many words for everybody to say. I don't know. But she tells Shona, like, hey, oh yeah, it's my birthday. And Shona's like, oh, I saw you going out last night and you're in the same clothes that you were in last night. And Betsy's like, oh yeah, how'd you know? And she's like, well, yeah, I saw you. We were doing the gale and watching through the curtains, which I love. Absolutely. I want more scenes of David and Shona just being the nosy neighbors next door or even over the fence. And she's like, hey, and I saw too, it's your birthday. Like, they put up the birthday banner outside your house. And she's like, oh, yeah, like totally not excited to celebrate her birthday with her mom today. And, she's in her feels, it seems. She's hungover, she's tired. But I think since the Mason mentioned the other day at the bistro, ever since then she's been a little bit, shaken up. And, she's growing up. I feel like we all get a little self-reflective on our birthdays, especially a big one like that. And she's missing her mom. She won't be missing for that much longer. And Shona's like, hey, I'll hook you up with this free bacon thing and this lemonade, this can of lemonade, here you go. And Roy's like, I'm sorry that I don't have carrot cake available that you enjoy so much, which is an acquired taste. I actually feel like it makes sense that Betsy Swain would enjoy carrot cake. Like, I feel like she's got like the weird quirky food taste. We do the pineapple on pizza, which is just, what are you doing? So the carrot cake feels very on brand for little Miss Betsy Swain. And she's like, don't worry about it, Roy. Can of lemonade for free. That's great. And she leaves while she's trying to call Dylan, one of her friends that she was hanging out with the evening prior. So then we're in number 8, and David is doing the gale, and he's looking outside to see if Carla is trying to squeeze any additional recycling into his bin. So again, the bin wars continue. Now it's Carla versus David, which I thought it'd be more Lisa versus David, but it seems like things have kind of swapped a little bit. So, and he remarks, I could see her, she's holding this big, giant cardboard piece, and she's not going to be able to fit that into her bin too, so she's going to definitely put it in mine. Oh, I can't wait to catch her in it. And then he's like, oh, it's actually, she managed to get that in her own bin. That's pretty impressive. And Audrey makes a guest appearance. She crawled, I guess, out of the annex that she's been locked up in for the last couple of months. So when she's not at Audrey's salon, she's in this annex. She goes to David like, what the heck are you doing, bro? You know how they say, girls become their mothers when they get older. And David's like, I know what you're saying, but no, I am not becoming Gail. And she's like, well, the way you were treating new Lily this morning, I mean, she's a new member of the family, new Lily. She's just trying to learn the ropes around here, right? Get her head around that, wrapped around everything. And David's like, it's not about me becoming Gail. It's about Lily turning into me, which is terrifying. I love this. I love this for a character arc for him, because last year he was nominated for all these comedic performance awards. There wasn't really a lot of lightness to his character last year. There was like the whole Harvey stuff and the blackmail and yada yada yada, which is just mentally and physically draining, to be brutally honest. So it's nice to see this year him just being like a cranky, nosy neighbor. I feel like it's just so aligns with David. It doesn't feel forced. It doesn't feel like too much. And honestly, it's nice to see different characters interacting with Lisa and Betsy, because for months on end, especially in the beginning of her and Carla's relationship, they were confined to Carla's flat, which was completely removed from the street for the most part. Kev and Abby return with the amputee and the Imran's bastard kid with her. And Carl Webster's at the garage and he's like, hey, welcome home, everybody. Abby's obviously elated to see him because she's been without her hot, steamy man, mechanic guy, brother-in-law, I don't know, creep Carl for a while, and Carl's acting a little like shifty. Kev's obviously mad that he's there. He's like, I told you not to be at my garage, like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, Tyrone like asked me to help, and I've been helping, even though he's been doing the opposite of helping and just stealing cars and using Kev's shop to do that. So Kev leaves in a huff and a puff. Not really too much of a development on this storyline, and to be honest, I could give a rat's behind. Later on, she says, don't worry, I didn't, sleep with Kevin the whole time. We were sharing a room with Alfie, so we couldn't really do anything anyways. And Carl doesn't seem really worried about this anyways. I mean, it's not like he hasn't been getting any action. He's been getting boned by James Bailey, so he's been preoccupied otherwise. Didn't even notice. And he's like, no, don't worry, but he's acting a little shifty and shady. Eventually in the Rovers, he gets a phone call from Fiona. And again, he acts a little shifty. So we'll get a little bit into the Carl stuff. Again, a lot of these stories kind of intertwined tonight, so I thought it would be easier to just go through everything in sequential order by scene. But poor Abby in all of this. Like, I feel for Abby, but I'm like, girl, like, you cannot think that this is love. And I wish that I could tell what Corey was doing with Carl. I feel like they don't know if they want to keep him around or if he's just used to rock up her relationship with Kev, which, let's be honest, really was already kind of a weird pairing in my opinion. Like, I can buy them as a family unit, but romantically, like, I'm not shipping Abby and Kev. So I could see a world where Abby does eventually choose herself and is like, I don't want either of you Webster boys because you're both losers and lame and you both suck in bed. But right now Carl's rocking her world, and he's also rocking James Bailey. So I'm curious to see how Abby's gonna find out, if she's gonna find out about James first, if she's gonna find out about the shady MOT stuff more, who she's gonna hear from, if she's gonna see it with her own eye holes. I don't know. But it's a little hard for me to fully sympathize with Abby at this point because it's just a lot of like, girl, what are you doing? And like, we just don't know enough about Carl Webster to like care. I guess I could see her if she was having an affair with somebody like Kit. Which I could kind of see them maybe having chemistry. I don't know. I haven't really seen them interact in many scenes aside from the interrogation when she got into a fight with Toya. So I don't know. I just feel like we don't really know anything about Carl outside the fact that he's Bill Webster's bastard. He's from Germany. Doesn't speak German as far as we know. Doesn't have a German accent. And didn't really talk to his family. Oh, and he likes to steal cars and rip his family off. Like, outside of that. So then we're back at Shay number 6, and Betsy's doing birthday shots complimentary of Uncle Rai Rai, who bought her a bottle of pink sambu. Says Roy rolls in with the carrot cake because I guess he felt bad about not having any carrot cake slices available for Betsy, which was really sweet. And he comes in with his rubber gloves on, which I think was a good call on this part because it's like, look, you're entering the DS hot stuff zone, so you don't know. She might, pick up a fingerprint here and there and it might be used against you later on. So it's probably a safe bet on your end. And everybody raises a toast to absent moms, which was hilarious because Carla's like, yeah, my mom also dead. I'm also part of the dead mom club. Sharon, right? Maybe she's the next one to resurrect from the dead. And Michelle Connor's off MIA in Ireland, so everybody can relate a little bit, except for, I don't know, maybe Lisa's got a dead parent too? I don't know. We don't really know a whole lot about that. Maybe we'll find out more about Lisa's familial ties. Who knows? But yeah, Royston's like, I'm not taking a shot. Carla's like, I got a kidney to protect, but I'll raise it up. I'll pour one out for the home. Royston looks a little distracted in the background, looks a little shifty. And he clocks the photo and he's like, oh crap. You can tell the wheels, the cogs are turning in Royston's brain. He's like, and he even starts to point like, starting to say something like, oh, I've seen this chick before in the flesh. Didn't expect to see her plastered all over the house, but here we are. So then we go back to number 8, and David brings Lily home from school because during his little exchange with Audrey, he got a phone call from school or a text saying, oh, Lily got into a fight. So he picks Lily up from school and he tells her, go upstairs, and she storms upstairs to her room. And just as she's storming upstairs, Sarah storms in with a load of laundry, and David's like, what the heck are you doing in my house, bro? And she's like, 1, I grew up here. Like, it's my house for life, bro. And 2, my washer is not working properly, and Shona said I could use yours. And he's like, oh, yeah, okay, sure, help yourself. This is like an Airbnb all of a sudden, I guess. So then David hears music playing from next door because DJ Rai decided to turn up the tunes and show off his mad DJing skills, yo. And David's like, oh, if it's not one thing, it's another thing. It's just pure peak comedy gold. And he storms over there into number 6 as Royston's leaving. And he's like, hey, turn the music down. And he's like, what the heck are you doing in the middle of the day anyways? Like blasting music and having a party. Betsy's like, I just turned 18, bro. Got a problem? And the DJ's like, yo, you want a shot? We're doing shots. And he's like, no, I don't want a shot. And Betsy's like, don't be offering him my gifted Sambuca. Hell no. He's been giving us nothing but grief. So she tells David to jog on, and he jogs on. And Betsy then goes to Lisa, you know what? I'm going out with my friends. This was all nice and everything. Really nice that we were playing Happy Families. Thanks, Carla and Rai for being the new fam. Like, thumbs up. Ma, I'm out. Thanks for the Becky thing. Gotta go. And Lisa's like, what the heck, bro? Because I booked us a table at this, I love how she says it, Italian restaurant. We're getting Italian today. And Betsy's like, yeah, I'm not hungry. I'm hungover, which made no sense to me because when I'm hungover, I eat all of the food. I want all of the salty, good, carby, greasy grossness. Like whatever disgusting hamburger, french fry, chili, cheese, dog, whatever you name it, I want it all to soak up last night's bad decision making. And Betsy essentially storms off and she's like, well, I'm gonna do what I want because it's my birthday and I'm 18 now. And Lisa's like, okay. And then Betsy, as she's walking up the stairs, she holds her stomach. So again, the plot thickens. Then we catch David outside, all huffing and puffing after, being told by an 18-year-old to jog on. And he's like, you know what? I'm tired of these bins and the recycling being in my bin. So he rips open his recycling bin and he takes out these 2 bags that I guess Carla put in his bin. Instead, he chucks it over to their yard. And then he goes through a plastic bag that has a pregnancy test. And it's positive. So he takes the pregnancy test with him inside of number 8. To which he then turns to Sarah and he's like, hey, guess what I found in my bin? And she's like, ooh, tell me. And he's like, oh, I found this pee stick that says positive. He's like, you know what that means? He's like, it's either Betsy's pregnancy test or Carla or Lisa's. He's like, I'm hoping for the latter because that means that somebody's been bumping uglies with somebody else. And then Sarah's like, well, hold on a minute. one, you know that people like pee on that thing too. And he's like, yeah, but I'm holding it on the end. And she's like, yeah, but like, what if their aim isn't good? And also, she's starting to think like, well, maybe this isn't, it's probably not Carla and Lisa's. Like, just given the age, not saying it's impossible, but it's highly unlikely. And considering they're pretty disgustingly infatuated with each other, it's probably not either of them. You know, there's no Peter Barlow in sight, so I can't say there hasn't been an oopsie there. So I'm just saying. And she's like, you know that there are other people who live in this house. Like, what if it's Lily's? Lily was complaining about her stomach not, being okay this morning, and Gran said she was, being sick in the toilet earlier today. It could be Lily's. It was found in your bin. And he's like, oh my God, no, it can't be. And I just find it hilarious because I like how their mind goes to the, 14-year-old that lives in the house versus the adult female who also lives in the house and has an active sex life, I'm assuming. Your wife, Shona. Like, it never dawned on him that maybe, just maybe, the test could belong to Shona. And this is kind of what I was theorizing in my head when I originally read the spoilers. I'm like, it's either Abby's or it's Shona's. Like, Abby ditching it in the bin. But then I'm like, it doesn't really make sense because she's not even around in, like, town. And, I mean, like, they have been sleeping together, so it's possible she could get pregnant. And we know she's fertile. She had Alfie, so. But it eventually turns out to be Shona's, as we come to learn. But it's just a really funny spiraling moment. And at some point, I can't remember if this is in one of the first scenes with Sarah or later on, but David's talking about, Lily and how she used to be like so innocent, and, she would draw all these pictures, and she even created this comic at one point of Gail and all of her ex-husbands. And I'm like, this is fantastic, and it needs to be spun off in like one of those therapy coping coloring books. I would love to get like a Lily Platt edition of Gail and all of her ex-husbands in comic book form that I could color in, and it'd be a very therapeutic experience, I believe. So this leaves David obviously in a tailspin. Lily, he eventually yells, and Lily comes downstairs, and she's like, Dad, why are you ruffling through my stuff? Like, that's not cool. It's my private stuff. And he's like, oh, because I want to figure out who's ruining your life. And she storms back up because he confronts her about the pregnancy test. And she's like, what are you talking about? It's not mine. And new Lily storms up, and Tizzy and Sarah's like, look, even if it is, can you blame her for not wanting to tell you because you're freaking the duck out? And it's not the worst thing in the world. Look how I turned out. And David's like, yeah, 2 failed marriages, and you work at a sweatshop, and you're Carla Connor's little bitch, essentially. And she's like, well, excuse me. Excuse me then. Which, to be fair, the read was on point of Sarah. It wasn't anything that wasn't on point, but still a little bit harsh, but very funny. So he essentially tells Sarah to shut up and get out of his house. So we get Brody and we get Dylan back in the cafe, and they're talking about, oh, what'd you get up to the previous night? And Dylan's like, oh, I was just, hanging about. And he's like, oh, well, you were out all night, right? And he's kind of evading the question. So at this point, start putting two and two together. The lingering looks that him and Betsy gave each other in the previous episode, it seems like the two of them hooked up, which we later get confirmed by Betsy herself to her mother. And Brody's like, oh, do you think, like, he's, I guess, not understanding what's happening. And he's like, oh, do you think Betsy likes me? And Dylan's like, I don't know, man. And just at that point, pretty much creepy Carl is sitting behind Brody and, like, whispers, like, hey, I have a job for you. And I'm like, bro, you've sat at the same table with them before. Like, it looks weirder if you're cranking your neck like this and whispering to a couple of teenagers who are doing your bidding. And Brody's like, yeah, I'm up for the challenge. Let's go. Let's roll and play GTA 5 again. So that's how they get into this stolen car business later on, which we'll go over in a second. But Evelyn across the calf, Evelyn is sitting with Cassie and Tyrone. Cassie's got like a blowout. Like, she's doing good. I guess dating Steve McDonald will do that to you. You get a glow up. Who would have thought that one? But she's looking good. And the whole Dom's family's, hanging out in the calf. Sans the girls, obviously, they're off at school, and Tyrone's going on off about, oh, I gotta get Hope these trainers, and Cassie's like, I hope you're not gonna get the expensive kind. He's like, no, if I had to wear somebody else's hand-me-down sneakers back in my day, she is going to too. So I guess he goes to Gregory Pope. He heads over to the thrift store. He leaves the calf, and again, Evelyn is here for a second episode, which was so exciting to see her back again. I thought she was going to be a one-off episode, but it seems like she might be in a couple more episodes to follow up with this storyline. I don't know what significance she plays or doesn't play, but I'm here for it. I'm here for it. So she goes up to Roy, who comes back from the cake delivery at number 6. And Evelyn's like, hey, how's your back doing? He's like, oh, it's, not too great. And she's like, oh, you got to really try this thing called Pilates. It's all the rage. And I'm like, Roy won on an exercise ball rolling around Roy's rolls is all I want and more. But him doing Pilates as well in his flat, can we get this? Because I could also see Nina, like, as a side hustle, teaching like a Pilates or like meditation class or something. I would love to see that. That would be a lot of fun. Like, just them doing Pilates upstairs in the flat and Carla being like, what are you doing? So Evelyn's trying to have this conversation with Roy, and Roy's just still distracted. He's very like, he can't stop thinking about what he saw, or who rather he saw. And Evelyn clocks this. She's like, you ain't acting right, bro. And he's like, yeah, you know what? I'm sorry. I am happy to hear more about this thing you call Pilates. So later on, we'll get him doing some Pilates stretches in Roy's. But first, we are in the precinct, and a tipsy Betsy now is, drunk dialing everybody. She's calling Dylan. She's like, hey, can you answer your phone because I'm sad. It's my birthday. And I went out to hang out with my friends, but I guess nobody wanted to hang out with her or could. I mean, it's a Monday afternoon, girl. Like, I don't know who you getting out on a Monday afternoon, especially after a long weekend. Like, I don't know about you, but I can't do it. I can't do 2 days in a row of drinking. I just can't do it anymore. So then she calls Lisa and she's like, hey, I'm really sorry about what happened before. I just hate sometimes, like, you treat me like such a kid. I'm not a kid. And I think prior to this, she divulged, like, oh, I banged Dylan the night before, like, to prove that she's not a kid. Like, I'm an adult. I can have intimate relations with boys. And Lisa's like, my good God. Like, what? Which I love, like, the lesbian mom navigating like parenting a daughter who, I mean, we don't know Betsy's sexuality, and I don't think like her orientation really matters this way or not, but I do think it's interesting to have that dynamic of, single mom raising boy crazy teenager, but also lesbian single mom raising boy crazy teenager. And I think there's going to be a lot of nice moments between Betsy and Carla too, in the months to come, that might be a little bit more, she might be able to relate a little bit more to than Lisa, but who knows. So just as she is calling her mom, this car comes swerving down the street, and just as she's about to say, I know that you're worried about me, but just because mom died by getting essentially hit by a car doesn't mean that I will. And then the gasp of all gasps, she screams and puts her hands up in the air, And it seems like this is the same stolen car that Brody and Dylan are in, because earlier we see George and Fizz filming on location. Like, it's a different part of Weatherfield that I have not seen in a long, long time. They're just walking up and down the sidewalk, having a little, exchange of niceties, and George clocks Brody and Dylan in a vehicle. Now, I don't know why he instantly clocks it as bizarre unless he knows for a fact that neither one of them have their license, or know for a fact that that car doesn't belong to them. But he clocks this as being strange. And he's like, okay, whatever. So later on, we do end up seeing George in Roy's Rolls, where he asks Carla, who comes storming in, because we find out from Betsy after she calls Lisa that Tyrone has been hit in this hit and run, which seems like it's connected to the stolen car that Brody and Dylan had been swerving. Carla and Lisa roll up, and Betsy's all panicked because, again, remember too, this is where Mason was unalived, right? Where he was stabbed to death, earlier in the year, and we know Mason's on her mind too. Her mom, obviously too, Becky, is on her mind, and she's scared, and she reverts back into scared Betsy, and it's a really sad thing and probably traumatic thing for her too, is also just seeing anybody get critically injured in front of you and you're like a eyewitness to it. So Carla goes up to the EMTs and she's like, I guess she's like, who is it? I wonder who got hit. And she's like, oh my God, it's Tyrone. So Carla legs it to Roy's, and this is where we find Evelyn showing Roy how to do Pilates, and she's got like these instructional magazines that are probably something out of the 80s, and Roy's doing some of these stretches, and Carla's like busting in, Evelyn, it's Tyrone, and she's like, Tyrone what? And she's like, he got hit by a car and he's in the hospital, and I called Fizz already, they're already on their way. So Evelyn's scrambling to get her stuff out of there, and Roy is like, oh my God, I'll go with you. And he starts to bring the Pilates instructional magazines. And Carla's like, no, what are you doing? Like, leave those here. So then George goes up to Carla, and these two I don't think have ever really exchanged dialogue ever with each other. So that was cool. And he's like, hey, did Betsy happen to see who the drivers of said vehicle were? And she's like, no, but I hope that they get locked up for critically injuring Tyrone, as we later come to find. So then we get Betsy in Weathy Police Station, where she gives a post giving a statement. I'm glad that they left out her giving a statement because it wasn't necessary. Even the scene felt a little unnecessary in a lot of ways. I think we could have just seen them going back, but they got to fill out that 45 to hour long slot there, don't they, kids? So Kit comes out and he's like, hey, I'll let you know if we learn anything more about what's going on, since I'm on desk duty now and I have nothing better to do. And Costello kind of gives him a look, but he tells Betsy, don't worry, we're going to find the person who did this. And it sounds like he almost took it personally, like he was part of this. So I'm starting to think, in a way, because later we see Carl in the Rovers, when he's talking to Abby, he gets a phone call from Fiona. So I'm starting to almost think that Fiona and Costello could be connected. Like, what if this whole MOT thing is part of the sketchy shiz Costello is part of? I don't know, I'm just theorizing, but food for thought. I'll explain a little why in a minute. And Costello gets a phone call that he hides from Kit and he holds close to the chest. Later, we learn from Kit that they found the motor that matched the stolen vehicle, but it was torched, which is interesting. So, again, is this connected to Becky? Is this connected to Carl's MOT sketchy-detchy stuff? Is it tied to Costello? I don't know. Is it tied to everything? Who knows? But I like a lot of the overlapping with these stories, and I think Corey gets it right more when they naturally intertwine stories. They don't force them. Like, I feel like this was a nice little twist with having Tyrone hit, because, again, from reading spoilers from a couple months back, everybody was thinking it was Fizz who was getting hit, and a lot of people theorize, oh, it's Betsy, based on the spoiler video, her leaving the voicemail. But I liked that it turned out to be neither. I liked that it turned out to be a totally unsuspecting character, which just goes to show that Coronation Street, you have the ability to surprise your audience. I don't know why you don't do it more, because we love being surprised. And I have a whole rant about this, about the Becky stuff, which I'm going to save till the end. So we're in the hospital with Evelyn, Cassie, Hope, Ruby, Fizz, and Roy. And, they're all going back and forth, super worried. We learned that Tyrone has internal bleeding, so who knows what's going to happen there. I don't think anything too terminal is going to happen there. I think he'll be fine in the long run. But it would be interesting to see, maybe like what happens? Like, does Tyrone lose like his mobility at all or anything like that? It would be nice to see a different kind of storyline for Tyrone, because it's been a minute. But so they end up doing charades later on to keep themselves busy while they're waiting. And Evelyn invites Roy. She's like, do you want to participate in the charades? Like, you seem like weird. You've been weird the whole freaking day. What's going on with you? Like, your normal weird is not matching this weird. And Roy's like, look, charades is not my best skill set. Surprisingly. I know. I look like a charades guy, but I'm not a charades guy. It's not my best skill set. So he goes to Evelyn. I'm going to go. And she's like, well, where are you going? Tell me what is on your mind. What is going on, bro? He's like, I saw someone that I should not have been able to physically see. I can't say anything more because I got to talk to Carla first. I got to talk to homegirl first. And Evelyn's like, huh? So I don't know if Evelyn's going to somehow become like part of this story, but I love it. I like how she's just randomly inserted into Carla and Lisa's stuff, especially last week at the bistro. I would just love more of that. I think it's just funny and random, and it oddly makes sense that she would just insert herself in random stuff. Then we get Carla, Lisa, Betsy back at the, I almost said back at the flat, holy smokes, back at number 6. After Betsy gave her statement at Weatherfield Police Station, and Carla and Lisa's like, oh, babe, by the way, the alarm's going off in Underworld, which you can hear from number 6, which is quite convenient, actually. Carla's like, yeah, I think it was probably Kirk again, left the back door open. She's like, girl, you gotta get better locks or like a better security system, because that thing has been like accidentally broken into or purposely broken into a handful of times within the last year. Like, just in the last year alone. Like, you probably gotta up your security a little bit. I'm just saying. So she's like, I'm gonna head over there now. And Lisa's like, well, no, not without me first. Like, I'm gonna go with you. I don't make sure everything's okay. Let me go with you. And she's like, I'm fine. I'm not a damsel in distress. Hang out with your daughter. Try and salvage the rest of this birthday, and I'll be fine. So Ryan ends up going with her because they insist, and Ryan makes a funny joke about, yeah, well, we don't know if somebody's going to be, waiting in, cloak and dagger and like hit you over the head again. And Betsy kind of gives this look of, oh yeah, crap, I forgot about that. And that kicked off the whole year of Kidney Gate, which we don't need to relive again. Carla's like, you know what? Yeah, you're probably right. Now, Lisa also makes a comment about another siege. So I don't know if she's referring to Mick and like that mini siege that was going on at Underworld. But that only affected like Sally and Sarah. Like that was it. And Joni. There was nobody else in the factory at that point. So I don't know if she was talking about that or she was referring to Tony Gordon, because that also equally would not surprise me. Because this chick is just like completely unfazed about Carla Connor's trauma. Like her past. She's just like, yeah. Like, she's been married 5 times. Okay, cool. What else? What else you got for me? Which I'm also excited to see Becky learn more of Carla's lore and see if she like tries to throw any shade back at her. So we will see. But so Carla and Ryan leave, and this is clearly a way to get Carla and Ryan out of the house. Now, Lisa and Betsy share this nice little moment where Lisa's like, look, I'm not trying to make you upset. And Betsy's like, no, I'm sorry. it wasn't really mature of me to leave that voicemail for you. And Lisa's like, it's okay. Don't worry about it. I know this is a really hard time and you're thinking about mom, etc. And she gets up and she gets this necklace that belonged to Becky and she puts it around Betsy. And it's just this really sweet moment between the two of them. And she finally says, your mom would be proud of you. This was her necklace. And Betsy's like, I think I need to take a walk. I think I need to get out here, clear my head. And, Lisa's like, are you sure you don't want me to come with you? I can accompany you. And Betsy's like, no, it's fine. I'm all right. Lisa's like, okay, like I'll see you later. And this girl has just been walking all over Weatherfield all day, like drinking and walking. But I guess that's what you do when you're young and you're fit. When you're older, it's like sometimes it's hard to get off the freaking couch. I'm telling you. But so then we're in number 8 really quickly, and Shona, walks in, and this is after Sarah tells her about what David found in the bin, and David's just going off about Lily and like, oh my God, I can't believe, this whole pregnancy thing. And Shona's like, okay, calm down, cool your tits. Did you ever stop to think that maybe that pregnancy test belonged to me? Hello, your wife. She's like, I wanted to share this moment and be excited with you, but you over here jumping to conclusions and down your freaking daughter's throat. And David looks kind of shocked and surprised. But I'm happy this kind of turned out to be like not a teen pregnancy storyline. Like we just didn't need to go down that route. I'm very happy. I hope they still don't. I hope that little moment of Betsy holding her stomach earlier going up the stairs in number 6 was just a red herring. I hope that's all that was. We don't need more babies on the street. That said, I guess they're trying to replace Max, so they're gonna have another baby plot in the mix. I guess. I mean, more babies. Coronation Street loves having people make babies and then having like it be baby obsessed for months on end, and then you don't see the baby ever again for like 5 years until they're already grown. And then they age them up like 5 years. That's what they like doing. So I expect to see baby Platt probably in the next 5 months versus 8 months, because that's how time moves in Coronation Street. And then we will see a few episodes of, maybe we'll see like a post pregnancy and like Shona really going through it. That would be interesting. Maybe we get a Shona storyline next year where she's struggling. That would be nice to see Shona, have her own little storyline and arc there. But that's kind of where we leave things there. So then we get to the big moment, which we all predicted looking at the flippin' thumbnail. Looking at the flippin', what is this, Corey? What is this? It's the green coat lady who had 2 lines the other day, bumped into Royston Cropper, who's a big character connected to Lisa frickin' Swain. And she's on the thumbnail, so it gives it away without giving it away. I mean, at least they're not titling their videos anymore, which is good. But yeah, if you've seen the spoiler clip of Lisa dropping the glass of wine and shocked, I mean, you probably already guessed that she had to have either seen a ghost, or my money was on the Swain cat. Like it was going to get Pet Cemetery up in this bitch, but no. So yeah, we have Carla and Ryan in Underworld, and Carla's like, oh yeah, the cops are already on their way. And like you could just tell she loves being a cop's girlfriend and like soon to be wife. And when she is wifed up, because I do believe she will in the end, I think it will have a happy turnout with the two of them ending up together. But I think she's gonna love being a cop's wife. Carla remarks to Ryan, yeah, the cops are on their way. He's like, wow, that's quick. How come? Like usually they don't respond that quickly to like stuff like this. And she's like, well, I called Lisa first. And he's like, of course you did, because you have you got friends in high places now. And Carla's like, yeah, whatever, you're just being smug and you're just jealous because I got these connections, and Lisa's sending her people over. You could just, she loves it. Then we go back to number 6, and this is where we get the Becky reveal. And Lisa's, looking at that picture that they toasted to earlier, and she's drinking her wine, and behind her, she hears footsteps creeping up, and she thinks it's Carla, which also, why would Carla go through the back unless she's notorious for entering her house through the back? I don't understand, but all right. She'd probably come through the front door. I'm just saying, but maybe Lisa's a little like 2 sheets to the wind at this point. She was drinking 2 glasses of red, which I also love for her now. It feels like her palate has expanded from just drinking scotch and lagers, and now she's drinking red wine. She's doing the Color Connor, so she turns around, she says, oh, you better hurry up, darling, because I'm already 2 glasses deep. And she turns around, and she has the gasp that was heard around the world. And she drops that glass. Grape juice spilled all over that hardwood floor. Thank God it was not Carla's thick shag, because she'd be pissed off. Becky, you can replace that. And it's Becky Swain. And again, we wouldn't have known necessarily Coronation Street that it was Becky Swain, but you put her flipping face on the flipping thumbnail of today's episode that was uploaded to YouTube, and you credited her in the credits. You put her name, Amy Cudden's name, the actress, under Becky Swain. If you didn't do that, I could have almost have bought for at least one more episode. This could have been a Gail Platt, Richard Hillman, right? Imagination. And I almost wish that it was kind of elongated a little bit more of like Becky messing with them, because we know she's been watching them since the proposal. We know that somebody's been spying on them outside of David Platt. We've noticed there's been a looky-loo that's been spying on the 2 of them for the last couple of episodes, and Lisa's been a little bit paranoid and hyper aware of this, and I guess it seems like this was the perfect moment for Becky Swain to have the audacity to roll up into her house, her new humble abode, with her new future wife, and here you are in your sweats and all, and you're like, yo, what up, Lise? And she calls her by the same freaking pet name that Carla's called her, so I don't think Carla's going to be calling her that anytime soon. But the absolute audacity of this woman. But again, I'm more peeved that Coronation Street let the cat out of the bag. Metaphorically speaking. Not the Swain's cat, but the metaphorical cat. And they even dropped an interview with Amy Cudden. Like, oh, yeah, it's revealed, it's Becky. Like, we would have found that out in the next episode. But then part of me is also like, going back to the Chesney Van thing, like, how funny would it have been, or clever, if this whole time, like, Becky was just messing with everybody, and she was just being like, maybe she's just a dick. Like, maybe that's just who she is as a person. And she was just, oh, I was like, spying, keeping tabs on you guys, but like also I just thought it was kind of funny to like mess with David Platt a little bit, just cuts. And I think that would have been really interesting, or like Chesney and Gemma for no reason, like just cuts. She could have been the van man, right? Even though we obviously this turned out to be Mick in the end, but it would have been a little clever, like having these little Easter eggs throughout. But was I surprised that Becky returned? No. Now, in reading some of the upcoming spoilers, which I won't divulge into this episode because I know not everybody is a fan of spoilers, so I get it. I will not talk spoiler stuff here in this video specifically, but I will say I am not at all surprised that they brought her back from the dead, and I'll tell you why. Because ever since back earlier in the year, before Mason got stabbed, right? Which still irks me to this day. Like, why did they have him get unalived? Unless he didn't. Unless he also faked his death, or I don't know. He was put in the witness protection. I was thinking that for a while too, because we didn't actually see him necessarily go. But I don't know. I think he's probably good and gone at this point. But when Lisa dragged him to Victoria Gardens to show him that random list of all the stolen items, which included an air fryer and the army helmet, World War II helmet that his brother stole. She also showed him a picture on her phone of her dead wife, Becky's blood. Not the actual picture of the dead body. So in my brain, I was thinking, all right, they're either trying to leave the possibility open that she could still be alive, or they already decided we're bringing her back from the dead. And we're just going to do this, and we're going to rock stuff up and mess with everybody and mention her constantly. I think somebody's been keeping a counter on the Twitter X's, and I think she's been mentioned like 100 and something times since Carla and Lisa had their first little intimate moment in the car last year, right? When they were swapping stories, and Lisa was like, "Oh, how am I going to do this without Becky?" So it's the questions. It's like, one, this whole time when I was texting you about how am I going to raise our daughter on her own, who you abandoned us. How am I going to do this on my own? And you just didn't answer. So I'm very curious to see this all play out. I'm also curious to see how Becky and Carla interact. Also the purpose for Becky returning now. If it's to get revenge, if it's to reclaim her wife and daughter back, which, I mean, holy smokes. I know a lot of people are very 50-50 on this. It seems like the general audience, from what I've seen, is more into it than the folks who are shipping Carla and Lisa. And a lot of it has to do with the portrayal of grief and loss. And, I have not experienced the loss of a partner, thankfully so. And I know a lot of people have, and they've really resonated with Lisa's story of being a widow and going through this grieving process. And it's incredibly relatable to a lot of people, and I understand that. I think for me, though, because I can't relate to it as directly, I've experienced loss over the last several months. I've been watching my own mother-in-law go through the grieving process of my father-in-law for the last couple of months, and it's been heartbreaking. But I myself don't know what that feels like personally. But I understand why people connect more to that aspect of the story, and they wanted Becky to stay dead. But from a sensationalist point in trying to draw the general audience more in, I see why they did it. I see why they wanted to rock the boat with Carla and Lisa, because they are such a strong couple, and you see other characters on the street remarking, oh, they're powerhouse couple, right? Oh, Carla and Lisa, right? So it feels like they wanted to really test this relationship. I think, though, it's safe to say, and I've seen a lot of people comment on this, they've cemented them so quickly, so fast, and made them like really obsessed with each other within a very short amount of time. And I think they did that all for a reason, right? They wouldn't, one, pair a character who was not a regular character before last year into a mainstay character with this whole, widow storyline, or now false widow storyline, and pair her up with one of the most iconic characters in Coronation Street history, but also too of the current Corey cast, and put that iconic character in a house for the very first time on the cobbles. Like, why would they would have just had her move into a different flat or stay in the existing flat that they were already living in together. Like they did. I know they were like, oh, we need more room. They really didn't need more room. I mean, to fit Uncle Rai in there, maybe the Swain's mysterious cat that exists or doesn't exist. But they really didn't need to expand their living space. It's just, I don't see them adopting another child or anything, maybe getting an animal at some point. I don't really see that either. So it was a sense to give, I think, to signal to the Carla and Lisa shippers, the Swarla folks, that, hey, we're invested in this couple. They're here for a long time. It might not always be a good time, but they're here for a long time. Don't worry, it's gonna be fine. We wouldn't have done all these things and cemented them as quickly and solidify them as quickly as we have if this was all going to be down the pooper. They just wouldn't. Because again, you look at the parallels between their relationship and Todd and Theo's relationship, and they got Todd and Theo moving into a flat. And I'm sure we're going to see a new set, which I'm excited to see. I'm excited to see what that flat looks like between them two. But they wouldn't have moved them into an iconic house that is that house. But I think it also kind of makes the whole thing kind of bittersweet in Yasmin's house. Having a dead ex return. Like, it kind of makes sense. But I'm just mainly a little peeved at the fact that Coronation Street, I usually don't get this ranty about spoilers because I like the spoilers. I'm the kind of person who will read the end of a book, the last page of a book, but still want to read the whole book because I want to know what happens in the end and how the story ends. But I like not knowing how they get there, and I like learning about the journey. So I'm usually okay with that, but this morning, and it's like I knew it was coming, but it's like I still would have liked that little gasp surprise too. You know, the whole episode I'm waiting, and I did get a little bit of that shock factor at the end, but it just kind of felt like the scene with her bumping into Roy the other day, like it wasn't necessary. I mean, I like that Roy's like, oh, you know, there's something going on. You know, I feel like I've seen this face before because I have. And I kind of like that aspect, but I just feel like it wasn't necessary. Like, they could have kept this under wraps even better. They kept the plot twist of Tyrone getting clipped by a car, and then Carl Webster and James Bailey landing in the sack the other day. They kept those both under wraps, and those were good twists. Those were interesting twists. But so it shows. It's like, I get it. You want people to watch the thing, and people will watch the thing. But people also like to be surprised a little bit. You know, people were thinking, even theorizing before today, that this could have been Tia Wardley. And we could have ended the episode thinking the same thing. I think a lot of people would have inferred it was Becky Swain. But when you're crediting the actress named Becky Swain in the credits, well, now we know the answer. The big reveal was coming anyways on Friday. Why did we need to know today? We could have all even thought, oh, maybe Lisa's drinking. Maybe she's just imagining the appearance of her dead wife, like Gail Platt, Richard Hillman. And then we would have found out quickly on Friday anyways, because it seems like that's what's going to happen. I'm assuming we're going to find out what happens. I can't imagine Carla Connor is just going to be chilling in the factory this whole conversation. She's got to walk in at some point. And what the heck is she going to say? How is she going to react? I'm actually more excited to see how she's going to react and how they're going to engage with each other. Like, are we going to see a little bit of that feisty side of Carla again, scrapping in the street? I don't know. Is she going to back off? Is she going to run away and take a trip to LA and visit Susie? Because that was dropped a couple weeks ago. Maybe she takes some time off. Is Becky going to be playing Happy Families in her house? What's Uncle Rai going to say to all of it? So, lots and lots of thoughts, but man, oh man. Man, oh man, what an episode. Overall, I thought it was a really solid episode. It's always really nice when the stories kind of intertwine in a natural and not so forced way. And you can have the dramatic sides, but you can also have some comedy. There was even a line thrown in there by Carla about the bill. So it just goes to show the writers are aware. They're hyper aware. And I love when those self-aware jokes come to fruition because it indicates and nods to the audience. Yes, we are listening to you. We know what you're saying. And like, it's not falling on deaf ears. So that was nice. And it seems like these episodes more recently are getting more positive feedback from the general audience too, which is nice. So now, of course, this might lead to more police stuff, but, I think that was kind of inevitable with it. And you might not like the storyline, but like, I will say this, let's not prejudge a storyline. I have a habit of doing it, before it even unfolded. I really, for a long time, I was not into the Todd and Theo stuff. And there's aspects of it that I don't enjoy or think are necessary. But the current path that they are heading down is the most interesting, in my opinion, that the storyline has been. So I am looking forward to seeing how their relationship continues to develop, how that parallels with this new aspect of Carla and Lisa's relationship. What happens to Tyrone? Who knows? I think he'll turn out fine in the end, but we'll see. But hit that subscribe button, hit the like button on your way out, and make sure you enable all notifications so you don't miss the next video from me. I might do a little spoiler video just going through the interview that they did with Amy Cudden, who is Becky Swain. If you guys are into that thing, I might do that tomorrow, because we don't have a new episode until Friday. So it's going to be a few days before we find out what exactly happens next. Like, is Rory going to get to tell Carla, or is Carla going to find out by seeing this woman in her freaking kitchen? We will see, but I'll be there to recap it all, and I'm sure I'll have a whole lot to say then. But until then, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.